Okay, so we've been talking about magic systems lately, and I wanted to touch on an interesting concept that some of you may already agree with, but may not have thought about either. But let me ask you this question. What if I told you, think about this, that the pulse-pounding twists in your favorite thriller, or the swoon-worthy sparks of romance in a story, are secretly powered by magic systems? Oh, interesting. You heard me right. Even in non-sci-fi fantasy fiction, there's always a hidden framework of magic, or a magic system. May not be exactly what you're used to, but there will be some kind of rule or framework that holds that together. If you've been watching some of my other videos about strictly magic systems in science fiction and fantasy, you may like this video a bit more if that's perhaps not the story you're writing. Maybe you're writing a mystery or a romance or just some kind of thriller, right? And perhaps that story you're writing is kind of lacking that wow factor. Hopefully this would help you do that. I do really think that changing the mindset of understanding all stories have some kind of framework or magic system that they function on will actually help you to solve some of the problems you may be having in those stories you're writing, where you don't feel like you're being heard or you don't feel like your problems are being resolved as a author of a different type of genre that's not science fiction or fantasy. Let's quickly just touch on and redefine a magic system really quick. Okay, so it's a rule set governing a system or extraordinary elements in a story, which then thus makes the implausible feel grounded and consistent. In speculative fiction, like that's more science fiction fantasy, it's going to be more overt. You got spells, you have their costs, you've got really high-end science fiction and you know, crazy stuff like that, right? But it's not really hidden, right? It's everywhere. Now, how do we look at that in comparison to, let's say, a mystery? Wouldn't luck maybe be a little bit of that? It's kind of like a soft probabilistic magic or force, or perhaps, you know, love in romance, right? It's an unpredictable chemistry pull. Who knows, right? Something's going to happen one way or another. And now let's look back at some of the other videos in this specific series we're doing about the sources, the cost, and rules that we've built up. What about a detective's intuition? That could be the source, innate or trained, right? What about the cost? Well, just, you know, mental strain. It takes a lot of a toll on someone. They're hyper-focused on solving this case, right? What about rules? Well, think about logic, or think about specifically logic in procedurals. Maybe soft vibes in some cozy novel or story. I don't think this viewpoint is very big of a stretch to try to imply and say that magic systems are in every genre. Actually, I think it's a power-up. It helps you to actually write better stories when you understand this is how things are working underneath the behind the scenes kind of thing, right? Especially for you writers that are super serious and actually wanting to make a good career out of this, right? And I think you shouldn't feel like that's like, oh, I don't want magic in my stuff. Like, okay, don't think about it with magic, but embrace it. Embrace it as a system that you can help build your story to be more professional, more polished, and more interesting. Let's find some examples and look through some of these. We kind of already talked about mysteries where clues are kind of like the hard magic, right? We look at some of Agatha Christie's whodunits. Deduction follows a very rigid rule system, kind of like equivalent exchange in Full Metal Alchemist, but where evidence is the trade-off, right? There are predictable inputs where you got your clues that yield outputs that are solutions or things to, you know, get the bad guy, which does help to build suspense. What about on the soft side? If you have a cozy mystery that has a serendipitous find, right? Maybe they evoke a little bit of wonder. I mean, you could even try to apply this very similarly to Allomancy from Brandon Sanderson's Mistborn, where a detective may be burning hunches like medals for insights with costs of red herrings or different, you know, diversions that are not correct that he has to kind of backtrack. Then you got maybe romance, where chemistry is kind of like a soft magic. Even though it's science, ignore that part. Sparks fly mysteriously, tied to emotional sources, unpredictable, awe-inspiring, like the Force. What about some hard elements? Like maybe there's tropes with rules and slight deviations from the tropes, such as enemies to lovers, right? Formulas in bestsellers that are very similar to that. Maybe consider historical fiction kind of side of things, where you have faded events as soft systems, right? Start with some of these examples. Hopefully that might give you some inspiration on how you you can make your mystery, your thriller, your horror, or whatever story you're working on have just a little bit more intrigue and interest. So why would this matter, and how could you possibly use it? Why bother uncovering hidden magic systems in your story that are not science fiction or fantasy? I think it supercharges your writing. It gives you consistency in your story with rule sets, which then thus means tighter plots, bigger payoffs, and deeper characters that don't have Deus Ex Machina all the time. In a mystery, I think a rule-bound luck prevents random solves. In a romance, you've got soft chemistry as this system that builds believable tension. Go ahead and apply it. Audit your draft, go through, look at it for any extraordinary elements. Perhaps the extraordinary event where the girl comes in contact with a guy who's, he's some celebrity and she's a huge fan, and somehow they made contact just randomly, serendipitously. Serendipity, boom, magic. Okay, now we're going to get into an exercise that'll hopefully be kind of like a universal exercise that everyone can use. It's kind of the ultimate workout. Take a non-speculative fiction story, take it, right? Analyze it for a hidden system. Pick a favorite. Maybe you have a favorite Sherlock Holmes book that you love. Go look at that. Go read it and use it as a framework to work from. Go and find the source of the magic and the costs associated with it, the consequences, right? Find those consistency, the rules. Maybe you want to go find a romance like Pride and Prejudice, where, the society of how things work and how people interact in social interactions is kind of the magic, right? Here's what we're going to do. Step 1, go choose that speculative fiction story, right? Or even your work in progress, if that's what you want to do. And then 2, identify those extraordinary elements. Then 3, map it as a system. Try to find the connecting elements that make that into a functioning magic system. And then maybe add to it if it's your work in progress. And then 4, twist it. Make something interesting. How does it elevate that plot and give you something really interesting to put into the book later? Go ahead and share your results below. I'd love to hear some of the cool things you guys are doing with these exercises. All right, we've gone through and done a lot of stuff over this video and the previous videos as well. Done the basics of magic systems, redefining them broadly, spotting them across genres, grasping why they're important for you as a writer, and maybe applying them to your stories. If you've missed anything, go back and rewatch stuff and try to get a better understanding of what I'm talking about if you're really intrigued by this stuff like I am. Just for fun, consider what's the hidden magic in your story. Thank you so much for watching. It really means a lot when I see response and engagement to the stuff I'm talking about instead of just emptiness talking to the void. I like to see people actually being able to use the stuff I'm talking and actually benefiting from it, because that's the whole reason I do this, right? I want to help people. So thank you guys for watching. Now go tell stories. Don't forget. There are no bad ideas, just unfinished ones. Take care.